elevation. We hunt and we hungry, we salivating, turning nothing to something and celebrating. Markets changing, we calibrating. The first to get acclimated is the first to stack the payments, but you need to act with patience, but be careful waiting, cause this opportunity won't last forever before it is evaporated. So if you want to flip some houses, hit me up to make a plan. Your flip deserves.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and I wanted to welcome in one of our friends and great clients, Mr. Jordan Cunningham with Cunningham Invest.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. I'm excited about today's episode for two reasons. One, we're going to do a combination of, we're going to do a deal analysis and we're going to go over your specific project that we worked with you on together. And then we're going to loop in how we did it from a consulting and a project management perspective. I'm pumped to have you today. Let's kind of jump in. What I would love for you to tell the audience about, and Jordan is a repeat guest, so congratulations. I always think back to the Saturday Night Live skit where they have like the purple jacket of the Five Timers Club when people are on SNL 5 times. So you're making your way.
Yeah, 3 more to go after this.
3 more to go, and we'll give you a purple velvet jacket. Okay, everybody out there, let's do that. When somebody hits a 5-time guess, they're going to get an elevated bomb. You need to make it like orange or something obnoxious.
It's got to be felt.
Yeah, but it has to be felt like a smoking jacket or something. So stay tuned to 5 Timers Club. It's coming. I would love for you to give our audience, maybe the people that haven't heard of you before or heard your episode, give us your background, because I think that's super important. And then we'll dive into like this actual deal.
Yeah, I mean, starting from the very beginning, Colorado native, born and raised, Golden, Arvada, went to Golden High School, Bell Middle School. And for college, went up to CSU, did construction management up there with a business minor. Graduated it in December of 18, and then went and worked for a family business. We were a general contractor based out of Golden. So I did sales, estimating, everything pre-construction from, initial site walk through bid out and contracts. Did that for all of their projects, residential and commercial, for 6 years. In 2025, January of this year, I left to pursue flipping full time. I did my first flip in 2023 on the side, just a single family house in Applewood. Liked it enough to where I tried to do 4 in 2024, again, all side hustle type stuff. And then in 2025, saw the vision for it, saw how lucrative it could be. So I decided to jump ship and follow that. And honestly, that's kind of why I chose to be on the sales and estimating side of a construction company for a while first, is I had the vision of real estate investing and I wanted to use kind of the construction knowledge I had already gained and kind of apply that towards real estate. And so the next best fit was like, okay, what does estimating look like? How can I start to learn my numbers? How do I scope out a project, get to know all these people, that kind of thing? And it worked out great and felt like 2025 was the right time. So I jumped ship and did 2 flips this year, learned to be a lot more picky than the 4 I did last year. But turned out great. One of them was with you guys, which we'll talk about. Yeah, I got 2 kids at home, a 4-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy. 8 chickens, a dog, married my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 6, dating for 13, I think, 12, something like that. Yeah, that's me.
I love it. Well, the other cool thing that I want you to talk a little bit about is that, and to give you guys some background, is that we met because you're right, your family business was the general contractor on the Broadway Collective.
Shout out DT Construct.
That's right, DT Construct. Thank you for, making sure that Dan, the owner, was able to place you on this project, because really love what you and Jess did with this project. So thank you guys for a beautiful building.
It's a very different building. Walking in from the first time and seeing all the asbestos just come out and demoed building, and now
it's pretty fun to record the podcast in it. So thanks for that. I would love for you to kind of tell our audience a little bit about how, you have a ton of knowledge and background, especially on the construction management side. And I think people that do that sometimes still don't make the leap, but you took our academy, you then met a great business partner there. You guys did deals together, just sitting next to someone at the Elevation Academy. You're doing stuff together, you're doing stuff apart. Maybe just give them a little bit of a fill in, because kind of on paper, you didn't even need that, but it's cool to see like the evolution of what you've been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, from like a high level, my interest in real estate kind of started in college. One of my best friends, his dad was a high-end investor in Boulder back in the day. And so he wound up actually dropping out to take over his dad's company. They started a project management company to manage all their rentals and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where the real estate idea started. And like I said, started at DT to kind of work towards that goal. Met you guys through this project, obviously. And then when you guys told me about the Fix and Flip Academy, kind of a no-brainer. I wanted to check that out, and wound up sitting next to now a really good friend, Chris. we got to know each other really good. And, I'm a very security oriented person. So like me making the jump, leaving my 9 to 5 to do this is a really big deal. And
Yeah.
I think, me and him did that first flip together in 2023, and then we partnered on one or two last year.
Okay.
And so like, him and I kind of partnering, dividing and conquering, using our skill sets, and then also kind of comforting each other enough to make that leap helped a lot. Yeah, we met at the Elevation Academy, got to grow through that. And then last year, I wanted to do a couple independent, a couple with him. I think I did a good job of kind of mixing and matching all the different types of projects.
Yeah.
The first one was a 2,500 square foot house. The second one was another 2,500 square foot house that was literally the exact same floor plan. So it kind of
Nice.
just could copy and paste there. But then I did a smaller single family house, a small townhome, a bigger higher end house, and then yeah, one other one I'm blanking on right now,
Yeah.
but tried to get a good variety to kind of feel out like which kind of projects work the best. The little townhome in Aurora, lost money on it. It was supposed to be a 2-week construction project,
Yep.
quick in and out. Learned very quickly I don't really want to invest in Aurora, one for the drive and two for like the resale type stuff on
Yeah.
this market. It's tough, but kind of watching Chris do his thing, he's kind of focused more on the higher end stuff. And so naturally kind of following my mentor, trying to follow that a little bit. And so I focused on that this year. And my logic is in a tough market, you have a dime a dozen house and a dime a dozen neighborhood, it's going to be hard to sell because there's 1,000 other options there
Yeah.
for it. And whereas the higher end houses in the really nice neighborhood that have no red flags as far as stigma on the location of the property or whatever, odds are they're going to sell a little bit quicker, and they're going to sell to somebody who's less affected by the market. Someone with more money who's not trying to make a mortgage payment work and that kind of thing. And so this year was a lot more picky, and found Hinsdale, which we'll talk about, but that was, 4,800 square foot house. And then we have Trail Ridge, which is in Louisville that I have. It's a 4,000 square foot house, and both of those ARVs are over 1.2 million. I have a lot more pride in doing those kind of
Yeah.
houses. After when I was trying to sell that Aurora townhome, I was walking through it and I just didn't feel proud of it at all. I
Yeah.
was like, no, I should have changed out the outlets here. The baseboard is old. Like, it's just not very much fun. But then you go to these big houses, and there's just so much pride. You feel so proud. Dollars are a lot more fun, or a lot bigger, a lot more scary. But like walking through the house is so much more fun. And
Yeah.
focusing on that.
And I think that's a great kind of summary, and we'll get to what I'm calling the one of one features, because you hit the nail on the head. That's something that I want you guys at home and listening in your cars and watching on YouTube to think about, is that in this market, it's a funky market. There's a lot of inventory on the market for sale. We're learning that, if we use a scale of 1 to 10, what we're going to talk about here is what you made into a 10 out of 10. Beautiful product. But there's a lot of stuff that used to be that simple, kind of quick cosmetic stuff. That's 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10, maybe 6, 7, 8 out of 10. There truly are 15 other choices for people to pick. And even though yours might be the nicest, quote unquote, 8 out of 10, you're right. There's a bunch of other townhomes in Aurora, or we just did one down the street in Englewood that was, and I thought it would fly off the shelf, or it was a $475,000 fixed up price for a single family home. And we still had to cut the price $25K to move it. So like, I agree with you. I think it's an interesting time in the market. And I think you're set up for success, because if you can do the big ones effectively, you can easily come back down and do the doubles, if you will. So I think that's a good strategy.
That's the thing, is like, if I can diversify my skill set and what I can do, like right now in this market, it seems like the higher end is a little bit easier to sell. But then when the market turns, I have the variety and I can do whatever, and you just kind of mix and match whatever makes the most sense in that market. Yeah, seems to make sense.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Well, and what I always like to do for our audience is I like to paint the picture of the deal, and I try to like name the deal. So this is one that I didn't have a hard time naming, because this property on Hinsdale, and you guys who are following along, we have the before photos, we have the after photos. You're not going to believe how beautiful this house came out, but I'm calling this the naked guy tear gas house. So maybe what I'll do is I'll set the stage of like how we actually found the property, and then I want to bring you in to kind of talk about the deal and what attracted you to it. So for a second, that I'll tell the audience about is the takeaway on this one is you got to have a lot of fishing lines, in the water, because you never know when deals are going to come from. And so for those of you guys at home listening, came from, we used to have our license at Your Castle Real Estate, and I would speak quarterly on their company stage or whatever in front of a couple hundred agents. We since have left and we're at EXP. I haven't spoke to Your Castle folks in probably 3 years. And so I got a call from a former agent that said, from an agent when we were formerly there. And he said, "Hey, are you still flipping?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he goes, "I have a crazy house for you guys." And he starts to give me this story. Shout out to Larry over at Your Castle Real Estate. And he said, it is a house that got tear gassed. They hauled a guy out of the property. Sadly, he took a shot at a neighbor across the street. And then they ended up tear gassing the house and hauling him out naked on Christmas Day. The whole neighborhood got shut down. We knew this secondhand because we actually personally live in the neighborhood across the street. And so my wife, Ann, in book club had a bunch of friends that were like, oh my God, this is the crazy naked guy tear gas house. I can't believe you guys bought it. And I was like, well, we're partnering with one of our clients and I think it's going to be awesome. But that's kind of a crazy segue. Then I want to get to you to talk about the deal. But it's like, you got to have as many lines in the water as you can. You never know when deals are going to come from. But maybe talk us through, like, did that freak you out at first? Or like when we were sending it out, because we sent it to our whole audience and our whole buyer network and you jumped on it. But like, maybe take me through your mindset of like, this is a big project.
Yeah, I think, from the construction standpoint, obviously a lot had to be done, expand the kitchen, a powder room, rework a master bathroom, that kind of stuff. It needed a roof and windows. SWAT team had broken all the windows and doors trying to get into that house. When you walk in it and the whole place just reeked of tear gas, even 4 months after the fact. Like, I walked in and like, it just can't help but cough and your eyes start watering and stuff like that. And granted, there was a ton of stuff in the house that once you got that stuff out, it helped a lot. But I think, from the construction side, it wasn't scary because I have that background. On the CS gas side of things, like, I did some research before making the offer. And like, the reality is it's not a firehouse. It's not a meth house. Like, there's kind of a gray area for things like CS gas. There's not like a remediation process. There's no like giant stigma around it or anything like that. And so that was to our benefit. And I wanted to make sure the scope captured enough to where it was like we were completely remodeling the house and addressing anything that we could do. We didn't take out all the drywall, but we did literally everything else. We replaced attic insulation, new roof, new windows, carpet, flooring, doors, trim, everything, painted everything 3 times. So, like, I was less concerned on the long-term effect of the CS gas.
Yep.
I think the thing that appealed me to it more is I could get it for a really good cost.
Right.
And like, I've learned over the last years, like, it's all about the purchase price. That's where you make your money. And by this place getting CS gassed, I could get it for probably 200 grand under what I would have gotten it for if it hadn't gotten CS gas. And so that was probably the most appealing side to me. It's like what the CS gas did to the purchase price for me. And then also that it wasn't this giant stigma thing that I thought I would have to fight on the back end, which wound up being correct. Like, we made sure that we documented everything and had disclosures all written up and stuff like that. So we were above board. We permitted everything so we could be above board, which I think was huge. But I think with something like that where it doesn't have a big stigma, assuming you do everything above board and can provide all the documents that somebody would need, it didn't feel super scary.
Yeah.
It's always a risk though, especially when you're putting 400 grand into a house and like you got a lot of money tied up into this thing. If it sits, it sits.
Yep.
There's not much you can do about a house with the stigma on it. So the other part to it is like, as far as pulling the permit, doing everything above board, that entire neighborhood knew about this.
Yes.
Everyone was watching this house. If you didn't pull a permit or you decided not to replace something or not tell a buyer about CS gas, which I don't know if technically you have to.
No, you don't technically have to disclose that.
But like, they're going to find out
Yes.
and they're going to come back to me. And odds are the neighborhood's going to tell them before we even close on it. So again, just keeping everything above board felt a lot safer on that one. And then doing everything the right way. The last thing I wanted is to sell a house to a young family with a kid with asthma.
Yeah.
And it like be a really big deal, you know? And so I wanted to make sure that we're given a safe house, and turned out nice. And yeah, it was definitely a big 180 from when we found it.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. And I really commend you. And I think that's definitely something that people at home need to take solace in, is that, yeah, there's never enough money on a deal that's worth a lawsuit down the line. I know you're a person of integrity. We are too. And it's just how we all kind of gravitate towards one another. Like, there's always houses we can always make more money. I don't care how much money somebody made. You're right. If there's no disclosure, if somebody has, major breathing issues or whatever, that's just not worth it. That's just a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, lawsuit aside, just the ethics behind that. Like, me personally, I'm trying to go up and not down after this life. And
well said.
I don't want to do that I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So
yeah,
as a flipper, it's pretty easy to kind of cut corners and save money where you can. But I think especially with health and safety, like, not right.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
No, that's super smart. And the way we kind of like to frame these, again, we're kind of marrying deal analysis with a cool kind of consulting partnership that we ended up doing. So I want to give our audience, the way we found it was obviously an off-market agent referral. And the one thing I also want to give you guys at home is to talk about is probate. And I know, Jordan, you knew a little bit about this, but we wanted to, in a perfect world, close on this thing a lot faster. You set the stage well, where this went down on Christmas Day of 2024. And then there were a handful of months while the property just sat and they were trying to get their, the family was trying to get their affairs in order. The owner, the dad, if you will, was living in Texas. The adult son was the guy that had, unfortunately, some very major mental issues and is now luckily still in jail, especially for the person across the street. We made amazing connections with those neighbors. But the wife passed away almost 10 years earlier, and they never changed their title. And so in his mind, he's thinking smooth sailing, great. I finally got somebody to buy this crazy house. But he probably wasted almost a month because we couldn't properly, title could not clear properly, and we had to have probate step in. So I think that was something that I know in our minds, like we wanted to get it on the market in August, and we thought that would have been the plan, but with probate, it just didn't happen. We probably had to burn about a month.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 weeks, and also you get into a project and you realize, there's more work that should be done to this house. Like, that house is basically condemned when we found it.
Yeah.
We had to do everything, and so construction wound up taking a little bit longer than we thought. Still reasonable, but yeah, I think we put it on the market the first week of September, right? Right after Memorial Day, Labor Day?
Yeah, I think we could have gotten it super, super close with Labor Day, and I really applaud you for, being on board with us. Is I know you've got obviously a hefty monthly interest payment you're making. It's like, it's done. Let's get it on the market. But the reality is that holiday weekend's the last weekend and showings just kind of tank. So I really commend you where we were, coming soon through that time. People could see it, but actually getting people in there. And we'll talk about how you really put those last finishing touches. But yeah, it was right. That was what we went on. Let's talk a little bit about the rehab strategy, the style. This was one of our custom design packages because at this price point, we'll talk the numbers here in a second, but the resale was in that 1.4 range. Maybe I'd love to hear from your side of things, what you were wanting to see from us in a design consulting experience, knowing that we had to hit it out of the park to make sure the right buyer loved it at the house.
Yeah. Yeah, I think initially I had a good vision for what I wanted the scope to be,
Mhm.
like X amount of bathrooms, how I wanted the master bathroom to lay out. The kitchen, we had to open up a wall and expand it. Like, I had a good understanding of what scope I wanted to accomplish. And I knew from like a high level on the design side, I wanted it to be like light and airy and feel light and bright,
Mhm.
like wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel as far as like aesthetics and stuff like that. Just light and bright, spa like in the master bathroom, kind of stay away from grays a little bit, just warm. And what I felt like I really needed help on, which you guys came in clutch on, was really light fixtures, style, paint colors, and just colors in general. And yeah, and knocked it out of the park, worked with her on that. We kind of came up with a kitchen cabinet color together, and then
Yeah.
she helped me pick out the backsplash and the light fixture. She helped me a ton with tile and vanities and stuff like that. And we teamed up a lot on the basement theater room, which I think is one of the coolest
Yeah.
parts of the whole house. You guys should look up pictures of that.
It is cool.
Very high up and an elegant feel. That's kind of what I was looking for. I knew the scope, I knew the high level concept. I wanted it to be like airy, spa like, and then she helped me like put all the details together and pick everything.
Yeah, and I'll give you guys some numbers. So this house ended up being 5 bedrooms, bathrooms, 2-car attached garage. It was just over 4,800 square feet. So this is obviously a really, really big house. I would love for you to kind of talk to the audience about. I know you went back and forth, we went back and forth. This house is 1,000 square feet bigger than anything in the neighborhood, which is obviously a huge selling point, but sometimes we're really sensitive to not over improve. And I know we all had grandeur thoughts of like, oh my gosh, dual primary suite and this, that, and the other. Maybe talk to us your mindset of, do we blow this thing out and finish every square footage versus what we ended up doing? I'd love for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah. Because when I bought, there was about 3,200 square feet finished. It was a
Correct.
ranch, and then half the basement was finished. The other half was just unfinished and open box room. One of the things, really cool things about this house is at the end of the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac had a park backed up to open space, and not just like general open space, like complete privacy open space, nice trees, walking path, that kind of thing. So like the lot and the location of this house is really, really nice. So knowing that, you can kind of decide, how much construction you want to put into this thing because it's going to have a higher end value because the location's so great. And so, when I bought it, 3,200 square feet, decided ultimately to finish half of that unfinished area. So we got it just over 4,000. That way on the MLS, we could put it as a 4,000 square foot finish versus 3,800 or whatever.
Was smart.
Stigma thing. Ran the numbers on adding a second primary suite in the basement and all that kind of thing. And ultimately, I decided the extra 60 grand, putting in a full on master suite in the basement, probably a sauna in the back of it type of deal.
Yeah.
Like, probably wasn't going to sell it for 50 grand more. And hindsight's 2020, but like going to the open house afterwards, the amount of people commenting on how nice a big unfinished room was for storage is a huge win. I think a lot of people actually preferred the finished storage than having a secondary suite. And for anybody with that kind of money, they can finish that space to be whatever they want. So it's kind of a blank
Yeah.
canvas. I was debating on like small theater room and small gym versus one big theater room. The reality of that basement is there's a fireplace right in the middle, so it has some kind of awkward space. It's not a great living room area. So
Mhm.
really trying to add a great living room area down there, I felt was important. Yeah, I mean, what else?
Yeah, and actually you hit the nail on the head. I wanna talk about the fireplace, and so you guys, again, if you're listening or watching, check out the before and after photos. There is a huge fireplace on the main level, and it was just that again, back and forth decision of we could have opened it up. You're probably more experienced than I am in the actual amount of structural heavy lifting with a massive flagstone fireplace, and it was a cool design feature. And I don't know if I actually that you knew this, but when I talked to one of the neighbors at the open house, they had a very similar model. They didn't have that extra 1,000 square feet, but they had the huge fireplace. They took it out, and I think that they liked it. But then their daughter was coming back in to look at it, potentially to buy it, even though this is a massive house for 2 people. And she even said, she's like, you know what, my folks took this fireplace out, and they don't know how to stage it and to live in it properly. It just seems like this giant kind of cavern upstairs. So maybe talk about, yeah, your decision of what we did with the fireplace, what you wanted to do, and then you're right, balancing it with the basement square footage.
Yeah, I mean, that fireplace it was giant. It is giant. Like,
Huge.
it really takes up that big living room, and so, like, the hard part is, like, how do you stage it with it? How do you stage it without it?
Yeah.
We did have somebody on the sales side come in and not buy the house because they didn't like the fireplace and they wanted it
Mhm.
more open.
Yep.
But, you're talking 50, 60 grand to take that thing out of there. You're reworking it. Roof trusses,
Yeah.
you're reworking floor joists, all the demo of that thing in the first place. Like, you just have to retie all the framing together. It adds up, and, like, so my guess was it would be, like, 40, 50 grand to take
Yeah.
it out. Do you add that back in? I don't know on the sales side. I think Travis, the project manager, had a really good idea because with the kitchen ring model, we took out a wall and ate up the dining room space, like the
Mhm.
formal dining room space. So that all became kitchen. Now we don't have a really great area for a table. He's like, put the table on one of the sides of the fireplace. And then all of a sudden it's like kind of a formal dining room. It's like
Yes.
there's still some division there, but it's still open concept. I think the design of that fireplace turned out amazing. We were debating on like, lime washing the stone and going really cheap, tiling it, doing something kind of funky. And I think what we settled on is something that I'll do on a lot of other flips moving forward. And that's just stucco it, paint it white,
Yeah.
made it super clean, kind of helped blend it in a little bit better. So it's less of an eyesore in the middle of the room.
Yep.
Super modern, super clean, mantles on either side. We added TV plugs on either side. So
Mhm.
that way people can mount TVs up high without having to have a cord running down
Yeah.
anywhere. And it's kind of a three-way fireplace. So I can imagine, once that fire is roaring in the winter and you can see it from all three sides. And it's just going to end up being a really cool, like, focal point of that house. Happy we didn't take it out, even though it would
Me
have made the
too.
space feel a little bit bigger. I think I like it because it divides the space enough, and it's a big enough room to where you can get away with that.
Yeah, and tell our audience a little bit about a decision that you made that I love was putting in those accordion doors. So when you walk in the main door, yeah, you have to kind of help the audience understand and the buying audience where they're going to live. So maybe talk about the accordion doors. And I think people would be surprised about the pricing of that it didn't kill the budget. But that I think we got tons of great feedback on that.
Yeah, totally, and I like, just in general, every time I've walked into a house and it has an accordion door, I feel like it's a very high-end house. Like, I think
Yes.
there's just a stigma around it, like, "Holy cow, this is a high-end home," and so I wanted that from that standpoint, but also, like, with it backing up to open space, I really wanted to highlight that, like, I wanted people to see that the second they walked in. Wow, this has a ton of privacy, it backs up to all these beautiful trees and this walking trail and all this open space, and so we place it in a point to where as soon as you walk in the front door, you see that, you see the view from behind it. I think it was $11,000 for the door itself. It was a 9-foot three-pane cascading door, and then it was like 4,000 all in to frame in the opening and install the thing. And so all in, 15 grand, 16 grand for a really high-end feeling feature in a home that
Yeah.
highlights one of the best aspects of the home, which is the backyard and the open space. Felt super worth it. Like, again, I didn't want to hide that open space. That was one of
Yes.
the biggest selling factors of this whole house. And so if I could spend 16 grand to highlight that and add a beautiful glass door, add a ton of light into the space, like, it just felt like a win-win across the board.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I know a lot of properties, back to kind of green space or open space, but this truly did open up to the Dry Creek Trail, which you could just walk out, and then that connects to the Highline Canal. So, I mean, those are things that you know, again, we live really close, so I know this area really, really well. You're leading into neighborhoods like the Preserve, where stuff is 2.5 to 5.5 million, and you have that same feel. So you're right, that one of one feel was amazing with those stores. You did a great job.
And also understanding, like, when you're trying to sell this place too, like, the thought did cross my head at one time, like, all these trees are still gonna be green and or turning color coming into the fall,
Mhm.
and so, like, having that giant window basically looking
Yeah.
out at that and highlighting it just felt good, whereas, during the winter when all the leaves are falling, it looks a little bit more bare. Maybe you change your mind and do something a little bit different, a little bit smaller because it doesn't matter as much on, like, the initial impression. Yeah, it just felt right, and I wound up, like, really highlighting that home. The whole main level just turned out amazing.
Yeah, it really, really flowed really well. Maybe the other 2 points I'd love for you to kind of talk through is you're right, the primary suite upstairs of how big you made that bathroom and that spa-like feel, and then also laundry on 2 different floors. I think those were 2 important things that, again, don't break the budget. It's not cheap by any means, but I think those were good moves.
Yeah. Yeah, the master bathroom, it was already huge, just
True.
really funky. It had 2
Yeah.
closets within it,
Right.
like, tub out in the middle of it, across from a vanity, and then, like, a really small shower and toilet room off to the side. It already had the skylight in it, so it had good light, but,
Mhm.
like, just horribly used space, and it was pretty dingy when we found it,
Yes.
obviously. Broken glass on the floor, all the stuff, but
Mhm.
we actually had enough space in it to add a powder within that master bathroom. So
Yeah.
the powder room that we added overall actually fit within that same footprint. We did a big wet room, so
Mhm.
shower with the tub inside of it. I think that really played on the high end feel too. We didn't close in with glass. We just did one pane as kind of a splash guard, but being able to consolidate the tub and the shower into one, like, spa-like wet room, one safe space, but also drove the appeal up. Still had enough room for a big old vanity and a toilet room. I really like toilet rooms, like,
Yes.
just from a privacy standpoint, like, functionality. I try to have on these high-end houses, especially a bathroom with a toilet room just
Mhm.
because I would hate to have a bathroom that didn't have a toilet room.
Smart.
So the master bathroom felt great. Obviously, got the skylight that let in a lot of light. Decided to go with a lot more warm colored tiles or gray or accent.
Mhm.
I just wanted it to feel as spa-like as possible. And then the master closet, yeah, we expanded that a little bit, not as much as
Yeah.
we were originally planning on, but just before we could, there was some dead space in the hallway that we just took over with it. But I wanted to add a washer and dryer hookup in the master closet. Leave the one in the basement still, but add a second one. Mainly from the standpoint of, like, this is a 4,800 square foot ranch. The end buyer could be a family, it could be an older couple that wants to live in here forever, and I wanted to make it as agent place ready as possible. So adding a washer dryer hookup in the master closet didn't feel like a big ask, like, monetarily,
Yeah.
but from a convenience standpoint, sounds amazing. If you're an older couple living in that house and you have your washer and dryer right in your closet, like, that sounds ideal to me, and you don't have to go downstairs to do it. So that kind of played on the age in place concept a little bit more, which I wanted to highlight just because it was a ranch. And yeah, I think, overall, one of my goals, especially on these high end houses, is looking at the end buyer. Person with money is going to be using the kitchen, the master suite, and, like, the living space, and so that's where I wanted to spend the money. I didn't put as much money into the basement
Mhm.
bathroom as I did the master bathroom
Yeah.
because the person who's paying for the house only cares about the master bathroom. I wanted to
Yes.
make that feel really luxurious, and then kinda skimp out a little bit more on the other bathrooms. Same thing with the kitchen, really we put the extra money in for pot filler and stuff like that just because we wanted the end buyer to really see where they're gonna be spending the most time and show them how it's gonna be worth it. Higher end plumbing fixtures like Hansgrohe in those 2 bathroom or in the master bathroom and the
Yep.
kitchen, and the more like Delta fixtures in all the other bathrooms.
Yeah, and I want to actually give shout out to Travis, our senior project manager. You talk about the level of fixture and finish that we need to put in a house. And again, you guys, that's all the pretty stuff, the stuff that people really care about. That was when tariffs were really, really coming down the pipeline. We didn't know about delays. And so, what comes from China, this is not the right price point for that. So you did select Hans Grohe and things from Germany that we didn't, again, not the least expensive things, which is a good return on investment, but they didn't get, delayed or stuck at a port or whatever else. So that was a good move that you guys came up
Yeah.
with.
And knowing your resources too, like Travis has a history with this one plumbing supply house, and he knew he could get good contacts there and get good deals and stuff. So, like, that made that decision a lot easier too. We weren't just
Nice.
ordering from some random showroom and out of Germany. It's like we
True.
had the connection, and obviously you never know with that kind of stuff, but it felt good because we could get such a good price on the Hans Grohe stuff. It made sense that, like, let's pay a little bit more for these 2 rooms, be able to showcase that on the listing side of
Yeah.
the higher end fixtures, and then we can, get the Delta stuff everywhere else and be all right with it.
Yeah, that was good. And before we move on to the actual, like the project side of things, talk to us about the theater room. Cause you're right. That was one of the things where to me, the big selling point is when my teenage kids come through here and say, sell our house, we want to move here. So you guys got that stamp of approval. And I think the theater room was like just such a beautiful accent.
Well, like I said, like the already finished side of the basement had a fireplace right in the middle of it. So there was no great spot for like couches and a TV. It kind of felt like a ton of different good spots for like games and stuff like that. So it was missing a living room down there, which I wanted to add. And so that 900 square feet, it was probably 20 feet wide by 50 feet long, 900 square feet-ish. We finished that. We did a bar on one side, kind of a nice open area for like a poker table or something like that in the middle. And then, couch area on the end. So one big, long, open room that 2 sets of double doors going into it that you could close off. So it kind of its own space, but really wanted to go high-end luxury with it. We did a matte black, flat panel bar with the peninsula coming out, like
it's awesome.
concrete shelves and wood shelves, wine cabinets, that kind of stuff. And we did, kind of similar to these guys, the wood version of these.
Yeah.
We did those in different sections along the walls to add accent. And then we did like the incorporated LED light strips on the TV walls. That way, like the TV's mounted, you got light strips on either side and you got the accent panels along the back. We did dark green everywhere. So it felt super like warm and cozy. I would throw a poker table in there. Yeah, it just felt very high-end, classy, elegant. Played on the darker feel there where we did lighter and warmer everywhere else. We wanted this one to kind of feel more like dark, elegant, cozy. I wound up buying a 75-inch TV from Costco to stage it with and just return it afterwards, which worked out beautifully. I'd have to pay somebody to rent a TV, and I didn't have to get a big cardboard TV that looked cheesy to rent it. So that worked out really well. It was a couple hours of time, but wound up getting full refund on it and got to stage with the 75-inch TV to really bring the whole room together.
Yeah.
I had ordered some movie posters online that I was planning on putting on the walls there, and I took them out there, and it just felt wrong.
Yeah.
Like too cheesy on a super elegant space. Like this room really did feel elegant and high end, and so I felt like the movie posters were going to kind of detract from that a little bit. So I decided against that. Bought a popcorn machine for it just for staging purposes. I wound up leaving that at the house because I don't have any use for it.
Yeah.
Just little things in there, like again, master bathroom, kitchen, living room, and now this basement theater bar room. I wanted to put the extra money into it because I knew that was what's going to sell this house. It did. I mean, the feedback I got from the house was one, the unfinished storage room, amazingness of that this theater room turned out to be, the master bathroom, the kitchen. Those were like the highlighting factors for everybody, and plus the view and the accordion door and all that. But yeah, felt worth spending the money on them. That room turned out awesome. I'm super happy with that one.
Yeah, and we got great feedback. It was fun because I was at the open house. We always want to be there and just be as obviously helpful and complimentary as we can. We got dual compliments of men and women. A lot of times those spaces are like obviously just man cave. But we got a ton of great feedback from females that were like, no, I could easily see myself being down there or their friends down there or having girls' night down there, whatever. So you're right. I mean, that is just spot on like poker heaven and have a game on in the background. But we just got great feedback from women. So I think that's the takeaway too, is you can't, even though it's maybe a male-centric space, women are the ones that are make the end decision on these types of houses. So like you have to be thoughtful of that. You guys did a great job.
Because it was closed off, we felt like we could do something completely different, which helped. I think if we would have just finished that out like we did the rest of the basement, it wouldn't have had that same touch. But because we were able to close off that room and really make it feel like a completely different style type era, I think it really drove people in.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Hey, everybody. I am with Jordan Cunningham with Cunningham Invest, and we've had such a great conversation. What we ended up doing is actually, let's make this 2 episodes. So we're going to have a part 1 and we're going to have a part 2 of this amazing recap on our Hinsdale property that we did with Jordan and Cunningham Invest. And if you've been listening with us, thank you for staying with us. We've talked about design. We've talked about the deal itself and, crazy naked guy, CS tear gas house, the whole 9. So thanks for sticking with us. When we come back, we're going to jump into part 2, and you're not going to want to miss that one because we talk about the numbers. We always share what's positive, what's negative. Luckily, this one was very positive, very lucrative. So stay with us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Elevation, elevation. Flip that house, man, this money for the making. We gon' get it, hustle harder every day, fam. Sky's the limit, time to